connection between Fifth Avenue and Central Park, and all the edges apparently he lost. There was a wall around it, which is fine, but just to show you how things have changed over time. We will have a Q&A at the end of this one. I'm really going to ask that you reserve your questions for Parks Without Borders. I'm always willing to come back and have a conversation about anything you'd like, but we really want to restrict the questions to Parks Without Borders. So with that, let me get into the presentation. What I'm very excited about is that we're coming here with already a deep sense of accomplishments. I've been here now close to 20 months, and already we've launched the framework for an equitable future. That was released in October of 2014. The hallmark of that equitable framework future was the Community Parks Initiative. Many of those parks are being transformed right here in Queens. And then we launched a capital tracker, and if I recall, we had well over 130,000 visits to this website. This is a website where you can now find the status of your park or park project, all of our capital projects in the city, all 450 of them, so people are now using it. We also have streamlined the capital process. When I got here, it was the #1 thing people complained about, from borough presidents to city council members. We're now on 90% on time on construction, and we continue to look for improvements and enhancements to make sure we get our park projects completed as quickly as possible. And then I'm very proud that we were able to have a great moment last month with both Mayor Bloomberg and de Blasio and Bette Midler to plant the 1 million tree 2 years ahead of schedule. So that's something we're very proud of. And I got to flip the switch on the Empire State Building. It was all lit green on November 13th, so that was a very exciting day. So we launched Parks Without Borders on the 12th, and then we planted the million tree on the 13th. That was a very big week. Wanted just to share with you, if you did not know, the initiatives that we're driving for a new direction in parks. Equity I already talked about, caring for parks. Want to make sure it's not just maintaining our parks, but caring for our parks. We had that presentation with you when I was here, I believe earlier this year, pushing very hard on new innovation technology to be smarter, more efficient about how we use our staff to manage our parks. But we're here to talk about this new planning and placemaking. It was always there, and so this new Parks Without Borders initiative is to really focus on the placemaking, the experience of our parks. As we see demographics change, we now want to rethink how people interact with our parks. So with that now, on the next slide, I'm now going to turn it over to Stephen Leonard. He'll go through the specific Parks Without Borders presentation, and then I'll come up and join Stephen, and we'll start to entertain your questions. Thank you all very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to everyone who's come here tonight. My name is Stephen Leonard. I'm the Deputy Director of Planning for the Parks Department, and I'm going to talk about Parks Without Borders. Starting with a comprehensive view, 1NYC, which is the Mayor's comprehensive plan for the city, was launched in April of 2015, and it called for greater access to parks as part of a key strategy for a strong and just city. So $50 million was set aside to make this a reality through Parks Without Borders. The program has 3 main goals. We're looking to make parks more welcoming and accessible by opening up entrances and edges. We're looking to make neighborhoods more beautiful by extending the beauty of parks out into the neighborhood. And we're looking to create new, vibrant community spaces by taking underutilized spaces and turning them into centers of community. What is Parks Without Borders? It's a new approach to park design that centers on entrances, edges, and park-adjacent spaces. These are the parts of the park that interact most directly with the neighborhood. But unfortunately, some of our parks are not designed to encourage those interactions, but instead to isolate the park and seal it off from the community. So you may have entrances with high gates and walls that block views into the park. You may have edges that have high fences that create intimidating barriers or lack any kind of amenity along the sidewalk to make use of that public space. Or you may have public, park-adjacent spaces that are considered leftovers. But these are missed opportunities to create neighborhood-facing spaces that can foster new interactions with the community. So to get into a little more detail about how this design approach works in each of these 3 areas, starting with entrances, we're looking to widen entrances, move them to corners and other places that align better with the way that people approach the parks in the first place. We're also looking to improve sight lines into the park and add amenities such as entry plazas or or benches to make entrances places in their own right, make them easier to see from far away and easier to find. And these changes we hope will make parks more welcoming and draw more people into the park. In terms of edges, we're looking to help improve visibility, add amenities such as street trees and benches to the sidewalk to make better use of that space. And these changes we hope will help make neighborhoods more beautiful and also make parks safer by improving natural surveillance of the park, basically bringing more eyes onto the park. For park adjacent spaces, we're looking to open up these spaces where they're fenced off, or to add amenities such as tables and chairs, or water fountains or other things to help make the spaces more usable. And what we're focusing on with this effort is spaces that already have connections to existing centers of activity. So spaces that are right next to commercial streets or libraries or museums, spaces that hundreds or thousands of people walk by every day and we're not using them for anything right now. So that's how the approach works. And what we're doing is applying that in two ways. We're applying it to our everyday park projects. Basically, wherever we're reconstructing a playground or redoing a basketball court, we're going to be looking for opportunities to open up those parks to the neighborhood. And we're also asking New Yorkers where this approach would work best. And then we're going to select and fund the 8 best suggestions to make truly transformative impacts with 8 new capital projects. There's $10 million set aside for helping the everyday park projects, and there's $40 million set aside for the new projects, which would be an average budget of about $5 million per project. So starting with the everyday projects, we've already succeeded in including Parks Without Borders ideas in 43 approved designs. And most of the time this is done within the scope of the existing projects. So where we're already working on an edge or an entrance, we are making decisions that are consistent with this approach. A great example is Travers Park, shown here, where we're replacing a 12-foot high chain link fence with a much more open and engaging edge that has amenities along the sidewalk and really opens the sidewalk up and makes it a recreational space in itself and allows greater views into the park and creates a much more welcoming and inviting face to the neighborhood. Now, where appropriate, while most of these projects are going to be done without adding any additional resources, where there are opportunities, we may add some funds from the Parks Without Borders program to expand the scope of certain projects in strategic ways that advance the goals of the program. And these projects will all go through the typical capital design process at parks, where community board input is a critical component. So there will be a chance to weigh in and give us your thoughts on all of these decisions. Now the exciting thing is the new projects. We have started a website with an interactive map that allows people to provide suggestions on where they think this approach will work the best. This is the first time that we've asked New Yorkers throughout the city where they think we should be making park improvements. And not only can you suggest individual parks, but you can zoom in on the park and tell us exactly what you want, exactly where you want it. So if you've always wanted an entrance where you walk by the park every day, you can tell us. Or if you've always wanted benches under the shade trees across the street from your favorite deli or coffee shop, you can tell us that too. So we'll be open to any suggestions you have to better connect your parks to the neighborhood. And the more suggestions a certain area gets, the more likely that is to be selected. We're also interested in looking at community groups and what kind of thoughts they might have, not only for improvements, but also for how they might use the space and what kind of programming and activities they might populate the space with. So if you know of any local groups or arts organizations that have ideas for how they might use the space, please send them to the website as well. Now the website is the centerpiece of a comprehensive outreach strategy. We understand that that not everybody has access to the internet. Not everybody feels comfortable on the computer, so we're doing presentations and workshops like this one in each of the boroughs. And we're also going to happy to come out to any community board that would like us to give a presentation to their community board in particular. So if you'd like that, please let us know. And then beyond, we're also distributing handouts and postcards at libraries, community computer resource centers, and other areas where people might access the internet. Beyond community board presentations, we're targeting areas that have limited home internet access, and we'll be doing more in-person events in those areas as well. At those, I'm sorry, actually to go back, at those local, more local events, we're going to be doing a tabletop exercise, which you can see right here, where we're going to be printing out maps of local parks, and people who may not be comfortable using the website can give us exactly the same input as they'd be able to give us on the website in a hands-on way that's much more accessible. So basically, you just take those little tokens, the little magnetic tokens there, place them on the map where you want to see the improvements, and we will take back that input in the same exact way that we take back input from the website. So I want to get into a little more detail on how the 8 projects are going to be selected. All of this input is focused on giving us ideas and suggestions for selecting these 8 new Parks Without Borders projects. And we're going to be selecting those projects using 3 main criteria. One is community support, received through the website and this other outreach. Another is park access. NYC Parks has a goal from One NYC of bringing 85% of New Yorkers within a walk to a park. And projects that can help advance that goal will be strongly considered. And then, because this is primarily a design approach, physical conditions and context are going to be the most important factor. So we're going to be looking at exactly what this park looks like, these parks look like, how they're programmed, and what the neighborhood context is around it, and we'll make selections based on that. And to get into a little more detail on that, because it's so important, the kinds of things we're going to be looking at are areas that are close to existing concentrations of activity outside the park, so we can make connections between activity in the park and activity in the neighborhood. We're going to be looking at parks that are surrounded by high fences or other barriers that block views into the park, entrances that also don't allow views into the park or that are hard to find. We're going to be looking at parks that lack entrances at places where people want to access the park, or that lack street trees around the park. And we're also going to be looking at empty spaces near the park edge that could be used more productively. So that's a limited list of the kinds of things that we're looking for. It's not exhaustive, but it'll give you a sense, A, of what we're looking for, and B, what might make good suggestions on the website. So that's the what of Parks Without Borders. The when is that we launched the website on November 12th. We've already gotten, as the Commissioner said, 1,100 suggestions, and we'd love to get as many as we can before February 28th. That is when we're closing the website, so if you're going to visit, we really hope you do. Visit the website before February 28th and give us your suggestions. We're going to be looking over the months after that, analyzing the suggestions that we get and looking at the parks in detail, and we'll select those parks and then start design on the first phase of Parks Without Borders projects in the spring of 2016. And with that, I will open it up to questions. This is the website address, nyc.gov/parks/pwb. If you would like a presentation at your community board, please email us at pwb@parks.nyc.gov. Thank you very much.
Now, before we start, I just want to go back to one so you understand what we're talking about, the one on site selection with the high fence. You know, here's a perfect example that here is a person walking the dog. We have, it looks like about a 6 or a 7 foot fence protecting what? Here's green space that we all know make us healthier and happier. Here's, looks like a city bike share. Here's all this pavement. And we always say that Parks oversees 14% of the public realm. DOT with 26% oversees streets and sidewalks. Together, that's 40% of the public realm. It should be seamless, and instead, we have agency jurisdictions chopping it up. This could be a lowered fence people have access to be an incredible open space. So in this case, it's probably a recommendation to lower that fence and thin it out a bit because there's a barrier. You can't even see through the other side. And so that's part of what we're talking about. Here's a perfect example that, you know, if money was boundless, this would be a great candidate to make a better improvement. So with that, we'll go to the last slide, and then we'll start to take your questions.
So I'm going to just take the first question just for mechanics purposes. So So this is all passive parks, basically, right? Because we're not going to do like playgrounds.
Everything is open. Playgrounds are included. In fact, through the CPI program, 30 of the 35 playgrounds have some Parks and Borders element. So we're going from, in some cases, a 10-foot fence, taking it down to a 4-foot picket fence. So it is eligible also for playgrounds.
Okay, and so mechanically, how is this going to work with the parks that we've all funded already? Are these only going to be new parks?
No.
The
The everyday projects, now, what Stephen said is that we have 10 million set aside for all those projects that are currently in design. They all go through community board review, so we make sure that the public weighs in. If people are uncomfortable with changing or lowering the fence, we don't do it. So we have enough choices. So if there's a project that's already in the pipeline, it can benefit. In fact, some are already benefiting from the Parks and Borders approach. So that is already underway. Even though you're funding it, if it can be worked within the existing budget, that's fine. We have money from DEP for bioswale, and we also have the 10 million of the Parks and Borders that will supplement that park design to Borough President and City Council money to put those Parks Without Borders elements in the park design.
And that may be outside the 8 that you're talking about.
Correct.
That's
We estimate it could be well over 100
right.
of that 10 million that can
That
fund
makes sense.
projects.
So, Councilman Lansman, and then we'll just go this way.
Hey, good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening.
Two things. First, let me say what a pleasure it is to deal with Dottie and her team. Very, very responsive to my office. Can't always say that about every borough commissioner of every agency, but I thought it's important that I say that to you publicly. The second thing is regarding what you're presenting on tonight. You know, I have some concerns about it, particularly as it relates to